Good morning, everyone, and very much welcome to another Flash Friday. We're all still very excited about the Amsterdam FinTech Week that we had last week, with a lot of buzz going on and a lot of cool stuff happening. Full of energy, we, of course, are really keen to further explore what's happening in the FinTech ecosystem. To do that, I usually always bring you a special guest that is telling a bit about what they're up to in the FinTech field and how together exploring a little bit about where things might be heading looking forward. And today, my very special guest is Marleen Evertsz. Good morning, Marleen.
Good morning, Don. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you. It's always hard to catch you and pin you down because you're so busy, but I'm really happy that we got you on the show today. And Marleen, as CEO and founder of Nxchange, an independent stock exchange that I think is a really cool solution that you put out into the market, with also quite some of the cool developments on your side that I'm really curious to explore today, and hopefully enlighten our listeners on a little bit. So great that you're here. How are you doing these days, Marleen?
It's been busy on both sides. Obviously, we also still have the sister company of Nxchange called Gold Republic, which is super busy at the moment, or for the past 2 years already, I think. And Nxchange is really picking up as well. There's so many developments in our market. There's so much going on. There's a whole lot of consolidation going on. But at the same time, we also see that this new way of financing is getting accepted more and more. So we're super busy. Exciting times.
No, exactly. Well, I think maybe let's start a little bit at the beginning, because I think that's also a story worth sharing. Is that you founded Gold Republic as a way for people to make it easier to trade precious metals, right? How is that evolving at the moment? I think also, of course, with the rise of crypto, you see that there's a bit of a change, I think, in that market. What's happening over there?
Well, I see when we started 10 years ago, and when we started, there absolutely was no gold culture in the Netherlands. It was not really part of our investment appetite. It was definitely not mainstream. Owning gold was only for people that could hold like larger quantities of gold, because we discuss physical gold, of course, in this case. If you look at the sizes, the bar sizes of investment grade gold, they usually start at 1 kilo up to 12.5 kilos. So you have to have a significant amount of money to be able to invest in gold. But with Gold Republic, we basically tokenized gold. So we made it possible for every investor to legally own physical precious metals, physical gold, and either own a full bar or co-own a bar with more investors at the same time. That really picked off. That really took off. By now, I think we have probably approximately 30,000 retail investors and about $250 million assets stored in vaults all over the world. You really see a shift and change. It's probably also, the mere fact that it is possible right now makes it also available for the larger public to invest in physical gold. At the same time, we saw the cryptos picking up, and people or investors that are attracted to cryptos. What we tend to see is that the profits they made in the crypto market, they don't really want to convert that to fiat currencies, but gold is a very good option. So there's a good mix between the two types of assets, and I'm super happy. I think we so what we do, we offer Gold Republic as a brand in the Netherlands, where we are by far the largest player. But we also license our platform to significant players in the international market. So we see quite a lot going on, not only in the Netherlands, but also outside of the Netherlands. And I think gold has always had a place, and it now also has a place for the smaller investors as well, physical gold.
But I think it's also interesting that you were able to take this precious metal, which generally seen as typically something that people want to keep at their house, almost to sort of, they want to really sort of, it's so tangible and therefore I think it feels really comfortable that you can actually own it, to actually still take that into sort of the digital era. to be able to work with it, right? Or do you actually also see, for example, people mail ordering it to come to home?
Gold is not really easy to insure, especially not when you have it at home. So that makes it also risky to hold it at home. And right now we offer investors to be able to hold gold within their name, but not at home and outside of the financial system, because our vault operators are independent vault operators that are fully specialized in storing a high valuable good, like Loomis, like Brinks, for example. And they hold the bullion in behalf of the name of the investor. So it's especially if you want to hold larger quantities of gold, it's not smart to hold that in your drawer or underneath your bed. So this is a good option.
Yeah, cool. And so I think you gained a lot of experience there on basically creating a marketplace that you took with you to when you founded Nxchange, right? So tell us a little bit about how you started that and where you stand at the moment with Nxchange.
Yeah, with Nxchange, you basically continued on like the basis of the platform. Obviously, has a lot of similarities with the Gold Republic platform, but then Nxchange is a lot more comprehensive. It has a secondary market. We offer peer-to-peer trading, and most importantly, due to the fact that we can securitize assets, we can trade anything on Nxchange. So whether it's a company that needs to get funded, whether it's a project, whether it's an asset, like asset-backed financing, for example, windmill or a solar park, we can tokenize everything and offer it to a larger retail public. But not only a retail public, also an institutional and professional public, because we are heavily regulated. We have the same permits as, for example, Euronext or all other European exchanges. So that makes it a lot more fun. Now we can do more than only gold. We can do everything.
No, exactly. But I think it's because I think that's quite extraordinary in the way that you also shaped that, right? Because you created a full market for it, which is quite exceptional, I think, to create that. How did that process go? I mean, was that something you had sort of as a vision to completely own the whole value chain, basically, that you need, or how did that come about?
Yeah, when we started 10 years ago, this was definitely something I had in mind. I see both Nxchange or Gold Republic more as a fintech, a way where you store value, where you exchange value, but where you also can spend the value. At that time, getting a banking permit was a bit too hard. So we decided to start with Gold Republic, and gold being a sort of a currency, a form of currency, that seemed like a nice start to start on. But then evolving into Nxchange, it's basically, for us, it's not, the secondary market is not the only thing that we offer. It's a full service from start to end, possibility to register ownership, to onboard investors, and to basically matchmake between them. That makes it interesting for us. And it was hard because with Gold Republic in the beginning, and Gold Republic is also always the principal in a transaction, but within an exchange, you always have a two-sided market. You have someone that wants to offer assets and someone that wants to acquire these assets. And building up that market is complicated. We already started in 2016. In 2016, there was no ICOs, there was hardly any blockchain technology around, but simply wasn't that sexy as we now all see blockchain, for example. Everybody was asking, what are you doing? Who needs another market? Because we already have the securities markets, of course, the exchanges, the public exchanges that are around there. That completely changed now. I think everybody sees the possibilities and the options. With Nxchange, we already have the permits, we already have the technologies. You see a lot of movements internationally going on with parties that are struggling with these two things, getting the permits in place and getting the technology in place. But we already have them for years. And so we have been able to experiment and to see what would match the market and where we think that Nxchange can provide the most value to the market. And for us, that is broader than just listing small and medium-sized companies that cannot get access to a traditional exchange. For us, it's really building good, high-quality financial products, small and large, predominantly large, because then by just creating size, you get access to the high quality assets. If you only focus on small listings, that's more difficult. And we see that is working, and we see that is picking up. So we have a couple of larger projects going on Nxchange, and it's exciting. Obviously, we still do single listings because we can. But if you would ask me, I think between now and 5 years' time, that is the area where we would be focused on, where we are fully specializing on innovation, but also on financial structures, on how you can finance hard to finance assets and bring them to a retail public.
Cool. And so I think what's also interesting to note is that recently, I think it's already a couple of months ago, you announced that you acquired Bondex with Nxchange, an SME financing platform. How do you see that come together? What's your vision on what's going to evolve there? Does it sort of fit the same vision to make it easier for SMEs to get access to finance?
Yeah, if you see like how you finance or how you set that up, it's all the same structure, the same machine that's underneath it. However, Nxchange does that in a public domain, publicly regulated as well. Bondex basically does it in a domain where they basically give a package, a do-it-yourself package to raise capital and to exchange ownership in your own environment. So it's just a license to a software package on the blockchain, of course. Bondex is built on Ethereum, where you can structure this yourself. But Bondex has given a lot of attention on making sure that when you do this yourself, that you comply with all the checks and balances, and that you all the regulation that is going on, that would be going on if you would do an issue yourself as a company or as a project or as whatsoever. So that was a very nice add-on to Nxchange, because we oftentimes had to say no to possible issuers that did want to use our platform, but didn't want to go public yet. Okay. So Bondex is a nice pre-portal. It's all about size. It's all about volume, where we can basically shape organizations or projects, let them have a lot of shareholders, do what they need to do until they are ready to go public, until they are ready to basically be offered to the public market, and then they can move on to an exchange if they want to.
No, exactly. And so do you believe that that's actually also going to really build momentum on the public market? Because I think that's let's say, I think there's currently you see there's still quite a high entry barrier for parties to actually go public, right? From a cost perspective, but also from a reputational perspective. I think not everyone's ready yet to actually be out in the open completely. Do you think that those barriers are going to be lowered also through?
Absolutely, because these companies are shaped very early on, according to the structure that you would need to be able to raise capital in the public market. And more importantly, these companies are getting used to the fact that they have a lot of shareholders. Bondex has companies in their database that have over thousands of shareholders, but they're not public. They're only addressing their own community or their own people that they know that they offered shares to in a private environment. So then the step to going public is very small. And absolutely, it will lower the boundaries for sure.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned a couple of times blockchain technology as a sort of a core, I think maybe part of your vision of how you should actually do this matchmaking and store basically the assets, right? Or tokenize them along the way. How do you see that evolve? Because I feel that we're also still in a relatively early stage, trying to sort of experiment a little bit on what this technology can do and where things might be heading from here. How do you feel? Is it now completely part of your strategy going forward? Or is it something that is just also still optional for you?
Oh, it's for me, it's definitely the way to go forward. If you see how we are set up, it even Gold Republic is not built on blockchain technology, but the whole all the elements that you can reach through build such a system on a decentralized environment. They are sort of incorporated in the Gold Republic environment as well. But with Nxchange, we've been experimenting with blockchain technology since 2017 already, and Bondex is fully on the blockchain. It serves the same purpose, but it makes it so much easier. You with the whole decentralized DeFi structures, you can incorporate so many rules in the technology itself, making it more efficient, making it more safe, giving the fact that you all look at the same data gives a huge advantage, also from the regulatory perspective, also from the investor perspective. So I think it's definitely the way to go forward. For a public exchange, it does, because we already do tokenized securities issuances, but it makes to also do the exchange of value on a blockchain, to basically do the matchmaking on the blockchain. It makes most sense to do that once you have a second exchange that can also offer this. And then it makes sense, because then you can move assets from wallet to other exchanges. The only thing is that the European regulation dictates that security tokens can only be traded on a licensed venue, which we are one of. At the moment, we are the only one still in Europe. It's hard to believe, but we're still the only one that can list and offer a trading facility or offer an exchange in security tokens. So once the next exchange is licensed and can operate, then that's definitely what you need, what you want.
So this is typically also where you see that you might be too far ahead of the market, and where you see that it's hard to.
That's the story of my life. That has been the case with Gold Republic. That has been the case with Nxchange. We were there since 2016. We were way too far ahead of the market at that time, but that's okay. We are very efficiently organized, and we have time. We can and we have time to also test the market and see where we need to be.
But I think that's an interesting point to mention, because I think that's also where you have the luck of that basically Gold Republic already being a success, also giving you some leeway to don't hurry up with an exchange to find ways to make money basically, but really to wait for the right model to appear and to make it all work, right? Because you're not completely strained on cash, which I think is, for example, maybe an interesting parallel to draw is, for example, with Bank, who just announced now their first funding round of 160 million just now, and now actually out of nowhere appearing as a unicorn, while they didn't get any funding before. But also there you see that Ali Nicknam, who founded it, was also able to use the proceeds of a previous company to actually build momentum with this company already before he would actually have to rely on third-party funding. It's quite beneficial, I think, to be able to do that, and especially if you want to keep ahead of the curve, right?
True. And it's not that Nxchange is only costing money. I think Nxchange is already close, if not already operationally break even. So it's and that's a nice thing about this model. Your cost base is very low, and you can scale very easily. But obviously, we're not in to just do it on the small scale, as a relatively small scale that we're currently doing for Nxchange. We have ambitions, and we want to make it large.
Yes, and so where do you think that's heading? What kind of projects would you see, especially coming to Nxchange in the coming future?
Well, at the moment we are working on 3 projects. The first is a large, so we are focusing on impact investing and emerging technology with Nxchange. That is our core focus. Like we do with Gold Republic, we focus on precious metals. With Nxchange, we focus on impact investing. So we have three large projects running. One is a combination between solar and wind, and the financing structure on solar and wind. The total size is approximately 50 million. Where we don't only finance one solar park, but we created a sort of a revolving debt facility for solar parks and wind parks in general. So that's a significant size, and that's something decent that you can then start offering to a market. And there's a lot of interest in it due to the low interest rates that are around, and the fact that we need to get greener in general. The second structure is a CLO. So what we figured is it's like listing very small and medium-sized companies to an exchange. You need to think about it. You can have a very efficient exchange, but that doesn't mean that you can efficiently publicly list a small and medium-sized company. So you need to think about that structure. So what we are building is a CLO, a collateralized loan obligation, where we basically determine, where we create a way to see through the loans that are financed in this CLO. By risk measures, by really diving into a quantitative way and seeing what is in it, creating more transparency on one side, then listing the CLO to the exchange, offering that to investors, and on the other side we can provide direct loans to small, medium-sized companies within the sustainable area. So that's a nice way to finance companies as well, and to automate a lot more than just singularly listing one company, one bond per company, etc., which make it a lot more.
So just curious, because I think I fully agree that transparency is something that that is really becoming the new voice in the industry, because everyone needs to be much more aware of where the money actually goes and what the effects locally are. But for example, distribution could be really that's basically something new. Do you do that with a partner, or how do you see the distribution of these loans?
We can obviously do that ourselves. We're fully licensed to do that ourselves. But this CLO is a very large package. It starts at 50 million, but it should grow into tens of millions. So we would partner up with other distributors to be able to do that at some point in time. And the third project is by far my favorite project. That is, and we already spoke about it, and you already were in all the sessions of Nxchange Capital, but where we are looking at the equity side, how we can structure that, where we have a virtual fund of 30 startup companies in the dig tech industry. And this is amazing. This is basically a combined IPO of 30 companies at once, where you invest in 30 companies at once, and where once it's listed to the secondary market, you can either trade the vertical or the separate companies. So that's from a financial point of view. It's definitely a lot of headaches on how to best structure it, how to make sure that we comply with all the regulation. But if it works, I think it could be a next step in startup funding world. And where I hope that we can contribute to making better steps, making more steps in that, in the at least in the Dutch scene, but also in the European League.
I think it's a really cool project, and I think it's also I think this is really where you talk about financial innovation becoming really tangible, I would say, because what you would normally do in such a case is that you would have to pool these individual shares in a fund, and to be able to then trade either the fund or the shares, right? But now you actually combine it into one, where you actually would create it much more like an option to actually combine buying and selling, or do it individually.
Yeah, so we basically turned around the model. Funds were created so smaller investors can basically have their way to distribute, to have diversification in their portfolio. With the vertical, we turned it around. We made it possible for large investors, either professional or institutional investors, to do a direct investment in smaller companies. So it's the reverse of a fund, if you would ask me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really cool concept, and but this is also I think the whole concept of tokenization that you have in mind as a sort of a base set to organize these markets, I think is the key to this, right? Yeah.
There's so much to do.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. So so what's your next big challenge now? I mean you've got these cool projects coming up, right? So, but what support do you need, or where is your biggest next thing to find the people to help you do this, or to get the regulators on your side, or?
No, the regulators are on our side. We have a very good relationship with the regulators for years already. What's my next big challenge? I think we're we're okay. We just need to do this, and hopefully we get some support, because you can't do these things on your own. You need buy-in from others to make it work. And I've been feeling quite alone quite often, because we are ahead of the market, and sometimes people just don't see it, and or they, I don't know, they have other interests. But it's getting a lot better. We have great partners who have serious assets, good assets. High quality assets is the key. If you don't have a good quality assets, you cannot do anything. But just getting the support from you guys to give it some attention when needed. But for the rest, I think we're okay. So
cool. So I think it's really great what you're doing, and I'm really curious as well how you see, and of course the support is all yours when you need it, Marleen. You just let us know. But let's say what I'm curious about. So how do you see, because what you're saying as running ahead of the herd can be a bit lonesome. When do you think this will actually ripple on towards the rest of capital markets, and how do you see might this trigger as well also innovations and different behavior in existing capital markets, for example? What do you expect there?
When I started with Nxchange, it was in 2016. I said it would take 10 years, and I think I'm still on that path. I think probably around 2026, 5 years from now, that would be a good direction, I think.
Okay, so then you think that things will really start to change on a more broader scale?
Yeah, they are already changing, and there are a lot of bad things that COVID did, but one of the good things is that people just opened up their minds as well to see if there are other ways to do certain things. And so we definitely see a positive push towards technology, towards other ways of setting this up, setting alternative financing up, I should say. So I think we're still on schedule, that there's broader acceptance for these kinds of things, and that is needed, because if you need liquidity, you need good assets, you need a lot of people that are joining. Looking forward to that time zone.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I can imagine now that people are indeed much more inclined as well. I think that in general, you see that capital markets get a bit more attention now since basically now most of the trading on equity and bonds is now actually taking place in Amsterdam. You get a much more concentration of people looking at these kind of markets and figuring out how we could also innovate there. Do you see also more interest basically sparked by that, or is that still more on the traditional markets where that's mostly focused?
I think everything will get together in the end. In the end game, we will be trading cryptos, securities, real assets, any possible value, object of value in one market. So I think the boundaries will definitely soften. I think the regulation will get more generic for all these types of assets eventually. And I think the monitoring and all the stuff that needs to be in the whole framework, the infrastructure will also be very similar for all these types of assets. So I think that it's very likely that the security exchanges will get crypto licenses, and I think that the crypto markets will get security licenses. And that's what I expect. So I think eventually everybody will be trading everything anywhere. And then I think the whole where you can differentiate yourself is to have the best assets. If you have the best assets flowing into the market, that's where you need to be, if you would ask me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's a cool vision, I think. And I think you even took it further at some point where you said, once everything then becomes liquid, you could also use it as a means of payment, right? So that if you actually hold, you could also pay with a fraction of a share of a company if you want to pay something, as long as you agree on the value that you exchange and it's liquid enough to actually make that transaction instantly, you're done basically, right?
Yeah, and that's cool, because when I said that a few years ago, everybody was looking at me like, what? And right now you see examples popping up, getting started in sort of ways that had that direction.
Yep. No, I think that's a really interesting. I think it will indeed, as humanity, to get it between our ears, how that should work. I think we're indeed definitely a decade ahead.
Well, it's like, for example, it's very normal already to have a credit card on your bullion position. Or
okay, and that's then not a debt position that's covered by gold, but it's actually a fraction that you then transfer, or not?
Yeah, it's basically what you do is when you buy something with fiat money, you sell a small part of your bullion position at the same time. So,
cool.
And that's already happening.
Nice.
So the bullion market's a nice market to look at on seeing what's going on and how things are developing over there.
Really interesting. So I think that's then the reading recommendation for our audience for today, to dive into the bullion market. Because time is already running out, Marleen. But thanks a lot. It's been a lot of fun to talk to you, and I think you've been able to share quite a wonderful vision for where markets might be heading, which hopefully works as good inspiration for everyone in that field. So thanks for joining me this morning.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, and well, hopefully see you on Gold Republic or on Nxchange sometime.
Exactly. So thanks for sharing, Marleen. Really cool to get your story. For everyone who listened in, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're looking forward to talk to you again next week, Friday at 9:30. And until then, I wish you a very nice weekend. And Marleen, hope to see you again soon. Enjoy your weekend as well.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.